Well, what a manly figure, huh? What a statue to put outside the House of Parliament of a real man. I'm sure he wasn't involved in a conspiracy, although I think you'll find that he actually was. In fact, it's well known by a lot of people that Richard I was part of a conspiracy of silence to hide his sexuality, in that he was homosexual, yet he was a very, very sort of strong, he had a very strong masculine image. So when you see a big statue like that outside the House of Parliament, you think, oh, what a very nice statue. You know, a lot of people would look at that and go, oh, what a beautiful statue that is. What they might not realise, as I was about to cross the road, is that it's propaganda. It is something that is there to give you the impression of something different than reality. Richard I was one of those, he's one of those people that suffered with what I would term multi-personality disorder, in that he had lots of different names depending on where he was. There's another political figure who is like that at the moment, as I'm sure you're aware, a man called Grant Shapps, who is called by different names depending on where he is. Am I going to cross the road? Yes, I'm going to cross the road. Richard the Lionheart was, well, Richard I was also known as Richard IV. In Normandy, he was known as Overlord of Brittany. In Brittany, I'm sure they said, "Good afternoon, Mr. Overlord. Going out anywhere nice this evening with anyone we know?" The interesting thing about Richard I is that he had a very odd name. In some of the places that he ruled over, he was known as Ok-e-Nu, or Ok-e-Nu, which means yes and no. So in certain places he was known as Yes and No. So he really is a perfect figure to be outside the House of Parliament, because obviously this is the building that is designed to confuse everybody into thinking that it is a moral, just and wonderful place of one of the most prized institutions of our society. That is the image that they try to portray. Of course, when you just look mildly beneath the surface, you realise that it's not quite like that, and in actual fact the idea of conspiracy of silence and confusion is what the building is really about. Of course, putting up a statue here and there is generally done in this town. It's literally filled with weird statues of this and that. A lot of the statues and monuments are in fact symbols of death, and they've just added in a new symbol of death up at Trafalgar Square, which is why I'm walking in this direction. And so I wanted to show you the mystical dead horse and illustrate that what people think it means isn't quite what it actually means. Sorry, I just nearly bumped into someone. I was distracted trying to get the shot of the strange, spooky owl, which they keep in a small van, because apparently that's terrifying to a pigeon. I think a pigeon is much bigger than that, so I'm not sure. What's he got now? It's got some other, yeah, it's another one, look. It's like a tiny, like spooky little strange gremlin-like creature, which they bring here as a form of, as a device to strike terror into the hearts of pigeons. Because, you know, pigeons used to be very successful here. They're not successful anymore because they are too scared of death. So they bring the symbol of death and they show it around to the pigeons, and the pigeons essentially wither and die and have to go elsewhere to find prosperity. So that's very apt that they bring them here, and that's why, of course, the horse, the strange, mystical, dead horse, is quite an apt thing as well. It fits in perfectly because it's a symbol of death. You know, Trafalgar Square itself, you know, Nelson's column is the ultimate symbol of death sacrifice, where Nelson, of course, ordered his very willing and able-bodied men straight into the firing line of the French and Spanish, basically sacrificing them for ultimate victory, and of course sacrificing himself for victory and for the state. And in that he sacrificed himself for the state, that's why he is, you know, granted such a privileged position, because you know, life is limited but the state is immortal. That is essentially what this symbol is telling us. I mean, it's called Gift Horse. It's a skeletal horse with a ticker tape around it which shows live data from the London Stock Exchange. Is it an analogy about the gift horse, which is don't look a gift horse in the mouth, because you can measure the age of a horse by looking at the length of its teeth, which is why we say long in the tooth, that means old. And so don't look a gift horse in the mouth, don't look a gifted horse in the mouth. So if someone gives you a horse, don't look at it too closely, because you may find out that the reality of it doesn't bear much resemblance to the fiction, which is, you know, a fine body of a horse given as a gift. However, it also, I mean, it serves a different function standing there. As a symbol of death, it is, of course, subconsciously terrifying, just like the hawks over there, or the owls, or whatever they happen to bring out the small white van. It's a symbol of death which controls a population. Of course, the horse, whenever it's used in an equestrian statue, is essentially the symbol of the workforce. If it's an army character on a horse, then it means the horse is representative of the army that led the victory, and then the senior officer sitting on top of the horse, but actually, in reality, sitting on top of the power provided to it by able-bodied, slightly naive men, generally. So you will notice that the horse is dead. The horse is very, very dead. The horse is mortal, yet the ticker tape, the representative of the economy, lives on. It is a symbol that is informing everybody here, psychologically, that the economy and the state is much more powerful than them. In fact, it is immortal. They may wither and die. They may be used up by the state at the state's whim, and they will become nothing but a skinny skeleton, whereas the state and the ticker tape of light lives on. So how many people come to Trafalgar Square to just eat their lunch, look up, see a nice statue and think, oh, that's really nice. Look at that wonderful statue with the electric ticker tape. How wonderful that is to see in Trafalgar Square. How many people will look at that and not realise that in reality it is a massive insult that is insinuating that they are nothing and the state is everything.